Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. My name is July Winters, and as a first-generation American, I've always been curious about objects and places that feel representative of the Black experience. Because of this, I chose to situate my research in the beauty industry. And for the past 9 months, I've been thinking about how Black women are included or excluded from mainstream concepts of beauty. Although the lived experiences of Blackness in America are incredibly diverse and rich, one consistent point of connection between myself and other Black women has been our hair and our skin. In my readings, I learned that hair is representative of both liberation and conformity, that there is an inherent politic woven even into my own strands. Policies like the Crown Act put in place protections against discrimination based off of the way that we wear our hair, and that stems from Eurocentric beauty standards, visible in even the design of taxonomies. Andre Walker's hair chart, a common curl typing system, and the Fitzpatrick scale used in dermatology place straight hair and fair skin at the forefront, in first position. The creation of these scales is indicative of a larger problem. Their hierarchies show a reduction of value for Black skin. In my research, I began to investigate the effects of colorism that become visible in the design process of skincare. 10 years ago, the skincare aisle at Sephora was more like an end cap or a single shelf, maybe a rotating stock of gift sets with foot scrubs or hand lotion that would disappear after Christmas. Now, there's a dedicated layout that occupies nearly every store, and I've personally been to 10. Even the routinely viral brands like Hailey Bieber's Rhode or Selena Gomez's Rare Beauty are squeezed onto the shelves. Yet, as the skincare aisle overflows with emerging brands, the best place to find products tailored for Black skin I've found through social media. Black skinfluencers, dermatologists, and content creators have been putting us on for years. So I asked myself, where's the visibility? Research conducted for the Business of Fashion and McKinsey's 2025 State of Fashion Beauty Report indicates that skincare is a $441 billion industry globally and has a still expanding consumer base. Now, let's get one thing straight. Nobody needs a 17-step skincare routine. But if we're scaling an industry for skin, then anyone should have access to that luxury. When a skincare company designs for Black consumers last, if at all, it reinforces stereotypes and an engagement that our community isn't meant for that industry. I found that between glow products with no benefits, skin creams with the wrong active ingredients, and branding that feels inauthentic, Black consumers are misrepresented across skincare design. Since COVID, when being stuck in quarantine forced notions of health and wellness to take on a new meaning, skincare is booming even further than before. It's become a clear vehicle for self-care. But historically, for African Americans, skincare has meant bleaching your skin. In my research, I traced Jim Crow attitudes towards Black skin through the pages of Ebony magazine, pictured here, where skincare was often sold through its pages in the form of bleaching creams and skin lighteners. Evelyn Brooks Higginbottom uses the term respectability politics to define a political strategy wherein members of a marginalized community would consciously abandon their controversial aspects of their cultural political identity as a form of assimilation. That often meant doing things like straightening your hair or lightening your skin as a form of assimilation. In her book, Style and Status, historian Susanna Walker notes how the appearance of civil rights activists stressed their social responsibility and highlighted their desire for fair or equitable treatment within American institutions. These demonstrators often sought to promote equality by placing themselves in close proximity to whiteness, but this also meant hiding or even destroying more Afrocentric aesthetics of their appearance, like straightening the hair. Within the advertisements in Ebony, the representation of middle-class Black women depicted in these ads are pictured next to products such as skin lighteners. They promote a light is right ideal that echoes through time, like this woman, decked out in pearls, gazing straight at the viewer. Her too light skin contrasts against her dark makeup, even more starkly against the near Black background with murky silhouettes. Come out of the shadows, the copy prompts. But the shadows here are about more than just visibility. These advertisements enforced an idea sold to dark-skinned women like me that lighter skin was necessary to bring them to the forefront. "How lovely you'll be," says the ad, as if I'm not already lovely. These advertisements falsely promote benefits to Black bodies when they're actually just symptoms of an unjust system that devalues Black personhood. Even more so, it comes at an immense bodily sacrifice. Hydroquinone, a common ingredient in skin bleaching products, has been linked to the permanent death of skin cells in more severe cases and very long-term damage in others. Interestingly enough, it's the same compound used in film photography as a photographic developer. I find it almost ironic that Skintona, advertised here, and this photo were potentially developed with the same chemical. Respectability demands assimilation, but the products crafted to meet that requirement push beyond beauty as pain. While the images that I studied are over 60 years old, reporting from Vogue indicates that by 2027, the skin lightening industry is projected to be worth over $24 billion. But the modern skincare industry also reveals a new form of inequality. When I was 14 years old, my mom took me to the dermatologist. My skin was covered in these dark marks, and I had hoped for a solution. Thinking back to that sterile white office with its fluorescent lighting and chemical scent also reminds me that skincare is healthcare. And in a world where medical curricula don't adequately address biological differences in treatment for people of color, mistrust of the medical system is a huge barrier for entry. But we still have skin conditions that warrant attention, like hyperpigmentation. It's a skin condition where patches of the skin become darker due to an excess production of melanin. It could be triggered by things like stress, inflammation, or hormonal changes. And for a long time, hydroquinone, if you remember that one, has been a key ingredient in solutions on the market for hyperpigmentation, putting our skin at risk by design. Even if skin lightening is less of a contemporary concern for Black consumers, the effects of being sold products like skin lightening creams and hair relaxers has created a generational association with mainstream beauty products and chemical harms. That means that designing for a health-conscious Black consumer also means considering the history behind the products that we were often sold. As part of my research, I spoke with a cosmetic chemist, and Dr. Esther Olu notes that promotional language can also be based on fear. She says, everything is a chemical, like fundamentally, but marketing will say things like chemical-free, toxin-free, clean, and it makes this impression that these synthetic chemicals are inherently harmful and that natural ones are safe. But it's not entirely the case. Esther calls this chemophobia. Simidar Jackson is a beauty editor, a founder of a skincare brand, and an esthetician. I interviewed them in my podcast episode on skincare myths, where we also trace the hesitancy towards chemicals into the sunscreen industry, a market that still faces stigmatization, miseducation, and overall insufficient product design. All of this can lead back to, quote, a lot of fear and mistrust in science, in medicine, and by extension, skincare, says Simidar. Skincare can be beautiful, but it's also medicinal. And for Black women, it's an intimate ritual empowered by good products. So what is it that Black founders can do differently? I also spoke with Brittany Antoinette Wilson, a creative strategist who has worked on multiple Black-owned, women-led skincare brands, and she keeps a framework for good products. She says when brands and companies create products that are solution-oriented, that can guarantee some type of benefit, you're likely to win your consumer over. We're buying for results. The Black founders of brands like Edam, Topicals, and Hyperskin design their products with the problems Black women face at the core. A Black founder has an intimate understanding of the problems that they seek to solve, like hyperpigmentation. It's evident in their formulation through ingredients like tranexamic acid and their refusal to use things like hydroquinone in their products. But it's also visible in the way that they challenge medical aesthetics in their design. A medicine cabinet was once the place to house stacks of narrow bottles with blue tops and round orange pill containers. There was Advil, Vicks Vapor Rub, and Aquaphor, all the same quite sleepy shade of cobalt blue. This color is actually intentional. Around the 19th and early 20th centuries, cobalt blue grew in ubiquity for medicine bottles and apothecary jars for its ability to filter ultraviolet radiation. That helps protect light-sensitive medicinal contents from degrading. But now, bright yellows, pinks, and greens can punctuate the white shelves of a medicine cabinet. The color palettes are artfully stacked instead of monotone. And with materials like aluminum tubing creating chemical stability, a skincare brand now gets to choose how they're represented. In the Topicals Faded Serum, its hero hyperpigmentation product, color becomes a key signal to what and who it is they want to represent. Pink is most commonly associated with femininity, and as the Glossier brand gained popularity, it also began to mean something else. The Glossier products, which went incredibly viral, are light skin tints. They work best on skin that barely needs coverage. When topicals came onto the market, they were indicative of something else. Faded pink became a response. If you were insecure about the blemishes on your skin, here was a solution that still brought fun packaging to your skincare routine with a campaign that promoted imperfection. The marketing campaigns for Faded, most recently this run with boxers standing in a ring, articulates strength and confidence. This model is in pink, but breaking the mold of traditional feminine presentation. Looking back to an Ebony ad that I found, it also brings to light how a contemporary campaign can assure that Black women get to exist in multitudes with confidence in their worth and value on their own. This is the antithesis of respectability. As I begin to conclude, I want to share a key discovery, which is that the design of skincare shows that inclusion has to be a part of the formula. Diversity in advertising should be a continuation of what happens at the product level, which considers the history and harms that skincare holds. I often like to look at these two images side by side. Two kinds of Black women positioned next to each other, 60 years apart. And they tell a story about how through an industry like skincare, we can begin to understand what it means for Black women to decide how they want to be designed for, and to be both behind the lens and in front of it. The media has proven that there are still stereotypes at work against how Black women should and can present themselves in the media, online, or even in their own homes. But I think that as these Black founders come into the circuit and create these products, they're also creating an avenue for self-representation that empowers Black women to be seen how they want to be seen. Nobody needs a 17-step skincare routine. Or maybe you just want to shop for a single targeted solution. The point is that for Black women, to be seen in the design of a product is to be given the right to choose. Thank you so much.